Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, recurring guest, YouTube superstar amongst the Milan community, football Kush, or otherwise, as we call him, Kush.
What's up, guys?
What's going
Man,
on, man?
The contrast of you.
Our energy is the same as Milan in the second half usually.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll get into Fonseca's comments later, but it is so funny hearing Kush at the start of a video have less energy than myself when how you are on your YouTube channel. It's just funny. So great to have you back on. Love the new setup as always. Is that the 125th anniversary kit?
Yep. It's here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you did anything regarding it. We'll get into some of the content stuff involving your YouTube channel towards the end of the episode. You guys could just hear Kush discuss it. I know there's a lot of stuff going on. Dramatic as you described pre-show.
Yeah, it's bad, but hopefully it's going to turn good.
You'll be fine. I'm sure you'll be fine. If not, we'll figure it out. We got the community to boost you back up anyways. So with that, low energy, negative. This was basically the match against Atalanta. Once again, it really felt, guys, like Milan threw away more points from stupid individualistic defensive errors. And it's just been a common theme for years now. It's not something that's brand new to this team. It's been going on for a couple of years. But again, it's just exhausting when it's coming from players that I think universally and consensusly are not beloved, like Emerson Royale, who some people thought he did okay. That match, I thought he was really crap for most of the time. It involves a bunch of things. It was nice to see that response to tie up this game, but it really didn't feel like Milan at any point within this match were going to come away with 3 points. It seemed like if they were going to get something from this, they would have been able to escape with a draw. It never felt like Milan were in the driver's seats where they were in recent matches where they were playing well and in control. Milan kind of never felt like they had control of this match longer than 10 to 15 minutes, Matt and Kush, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, this one was an odd one because I think that my expectations and my ask for this match, if you guys watched the preview episode, Martino, we kind of were on the same page with this one, right? It felt different than the Juventus match in the sense that, we'll take a draw. The Juventus match, you wanted to get a win. We didn't do so. In this match, a 1-1 draw, I think, would have been a favorable result for Milan, given their standing, their performances, all the things going on surrounding the club, and the fact that Atalanta are just a well-oiled machine. They're playing great across all competitions, despite, of course, the defeat to Real Madrid. And for most of that match, it actually felt like Milan were going to be getting that 1-1 draw, and I would have taken it, right? I think we were in a good position. We conceded. Of course, it had to be CDK. Why wouldn't it be, right? Absolutely dunking on Theo. And then a great response from Rafa to Morata. It was just that's what you want to see from these two, right? Rafa's capable of doing this, but Morata, we haven't seen too much of it this year. So you're thinking, okay, 1-1. They defended quite a bit, and Atalanta did have more savory chances. They looked like they were knocking a little bit more, and teams like that are very persistent, very aggressive, very adamant, and they want the result more oftentimes than not get the result, especially when you come across a team like Milan who really can't defend consistently over long stretches of football. And sure enough, they concede a very silly, comedic, Milan-like goal where just
on another set piece.
Yep, Emerson, and you see the still frame. It's Malik Chow not switching, and then it's just the back post, and it's like Emerson. You're like, oh, who's culpable? You see Emerson, you're like, it's the same old suspect. So this isn't just strictly down to Emerson, but again, it's a culmination of many things wrong with this club that, frankly, I'm not surprised. I don't feel anything anymore. Like we come on here, we create content, right? This is what we do, and we like to deliver to the community because they want to get our perspective. But we almost expect this, right? We've come to expect this from Milan, especially this season, and that's kind of my sentiments and feelings off the back of that result.
Kush, set pieces. I mean, these are. It's one thing when CDK, it was great athletic ability. Teo did poor. But the Emerson Royale one just feels like the far more inexcusable one. Would you agree with that, or are you kind of just like it doesn't matter?
I mean, I think for me it was more annoying what happened in the lead up to that corner kick. Because in Fonseca's system, whatever he's drawn out now, he wants to play Musa and Emerson Royale, or Musa plus the other right back if it's Calabria or Emerson Royale. He wants them to be sort of Musa to be dropping back and helping out. So you have more sort of protection on the right flank. But the way that both Emerson and Eunice just abandoned Lookman and just, I don't even know who they were trying to cover. They just
I
abandoned him. He's just sitting there, wide open on an island and saying, okay, I guess I can get the ball. They pass the ball right to him. He drives it forward. He gets a shot on target and Mike Mignon makes that save. That's what eventually led to that corner kick. So for me, the frustration is even more from open play as to what happened. Why did those guys switch off?
Yeah.
And then obviously what happened on that corner kick was it's pretty typical at this point in time. There's nothing new to say. It was players switched off, not looking behind them, not looking what's going on around them. And that was it.
I think it's so embarrassing. We're seeing a professional club like routinely make these errors. These aren't even like super difficult tactically drawn up stuff. It's not like we're facing Arsenal here. Is you're abandoning your man on the far post.
Yeah.
You were covering no one else. There is no other player to cover in that area. Chow was you can kind of understand he was more centrally. And again, that's not even on him. That's far post. Emerson Royale's the nearest one there. I think the most frustrating thing of all is just not even turning your back. And I tweeted like a couple minutes before it happened, like, oh, we're going to lose on a devastating corner again. But realistically, it's not even a prediction that I'm making for the actual match. It's just, it's happened so often. Why don't I say it? Like we're sitting here like week in, week out talking about, oh, can't set piece defend here, can't do that. Like these are so preventable. And I think honestly, for the large part, by the way, on the Musa thing with the right wing, and I think it's a good observation that a lot of people have noticed. It's sort of like, okay, so he's turning into Alexis Salamakers. He's in there not for his end product, but for his work rate to cover for a bad right back. That's really what he's become a de facto salad at this point for what his role is.
You're admitting, based on what Kush is saying, you're basically conceding the fact that your right backs are inadequate and they're not capable of doing the job. So you're bringing an extra piece there to cover what you already know to be poor play.
So right? Now you sacrifice two positions almost.
Correct. So now you're in positions where you're conceding someone to be producing up front in that right wing position, which again, you go from someone like Pulisic or Chukwueze to basically a workman, someone to just run and cover space and not really provide anything in the final third. I mean, Musa, he's got one assist in his Milan career. I think it was like that one cross very early on in, what was it, last year?
It was against Genoa and the one where the
very early
on his jersey.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, it's a handball. It's not a handball. He had like one other goal contribution. But still.
He's not a right winger, but it's like, to Kush's point, it's like you're showing everybody that they're right and that everyone who believes that the right back is a serious concern. And then you're kind of saying, well, we have to try to mask it somehow. I know we're going to get someone else to cover what we know is a bad player.
And the annoying part is you're also letting go of Kalulu. You're bringing in Emerson. Yeah. So you already made a new signing for that particular position, and now you need an extra guy covering for that particular role. It's just bad all around.
It's a domino effect, and this is what I was talking about on last episode, Matt, that I was complaining about. And we'll get into the Red Star game. So we get the starting lineup. Again, we're seeing no Pulisic because he's pretty much out for the rest of the calendar year. So we'll see him in January, from what I understand. Maybe if he's fortunate enough, he could come back sooner. But again, no Chukwueze from the start here, which was a bit surprising. I understand that he wanted to roll with Loftus-Cheek and Musa. But the point that I was making prior in last episode, guys, for the preview of this, or just being even brought up in the Atalanta match, is that we don't have midfield depth. And we don't have good midfielders on top of that depth. So when we're using these midfielders in the number 10 role, and Musa is a midfielder by all accounts, is being used as a right winger, what are the options if one of these two go down while Benacer is still recovering? And Kush, you've talked about it, the amount of minutes that Fofana has played to start this year. He hasn't really gotten much of a rest. And that's going to be the same case for Tijani Reinders, who also played a ton of minutes in games last season as well. So it's sort of like almost a ticking time bomb. We see RLC go down yet again. And I think Zoroli has had some knocks as well, so they haven't been able to really use him. So Milan are really running out of options here, and they're fortunate enough to come away with a result, which we'll get into all that kind of stuff. But for me, the starting 11, the selection for this one was frustrating not to see Chukwueze in there. Because if you started Musa over the weekend, like we have to get some rotation in. Chukwueze has done relatively well. He was the reason why the second goal was created, by the way, to win this game. And he was not that good in this match. I will preface by saying that. But he did end up sending in that cross that went to Camarda that ends up getting ricocheted for an assist. And then Tammy scores the goal. But as far as like the lineups go here, guys, maybe you don't agree with me. I'm really not a big fan of using all these midfielders when we have so many matches and we're so thin in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we expected this, right? I think that we were under the expectation that based on the quotes from Fonseca regarding the usage of certain players, specifically in the case of the midfield conversation, Tijani and Fofana, right? Tijani, let's start with him. He was the most logged player as far as minutes go last year from any outfield player. So this guy was already playing a ton of minutes last year. Again, he's still a young player. He's not 35 years old where you're like, hey, you're running this guy and you're beating him down to the ground. But still, minutes do add up. And there's something to be said about the high leverage, high intensity of those minutes, right? And those appearances, right? There's walking around minutes and there's crucial away fixtures or Champions League fixtures minutes, right? So the conversation has to go there. Yeah. And then you look at Fofana. Now, neither of these two players I thought dropped off to a point where I was like, wow, this is a huge concern in this performance. But you saw very early on in this match, I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of like, I was pretty comfortable watching the game. I was in a good position on the couch hanging out, and then I was starting to get a little sleepy because it was a really dull start to the performance. And then I see like three guys just go down. I see Loftus-Cheek, I see Morata, I see Musa, and then even the Tijani picked up something and he went down. I was like, what is happening here? Like, is this going to be like where we actually pay for the sins of beating our key guys in the midfield down to the ground? And luckily they continued the match on. But yeah, like it really goes to show you that, where we were a couple seasons ago when we had three starting caliber, high quality midfielders in Kessie, Tonali, Benacer. And now it's like you have two guys where if you take one of them out, they're almost irreplaceable because the performance, the drop off is so profound that you can't even afford to throw in, hey, we're going to throw Loftus-Cheek and Musa in the midfield. We're going to afford these guys a breather, and we're going to go and get the result that we need in the Champions League. Like, even in league matches, we can't afford to bench our top players because we're not playing consistent enough. And Martino, as we've been mentioning, right, we haven't done ourselves any favors. We don't have the luxury to switch off a little bit, ease up a bit. Hey, we got this result, that result. Let's rotate a little. We're not in that position. Every result, every point matters across both competitions. So that's what makes it even more difficult and challenging. And you could point it down to Fonseca, but you could also point it down to the fact that this is an unfinished squad, in my opinion. There were some additions I liked in the summer, but when you look back at it and you look at the players that are injury prone, Benacer is going to have his knocks, players are going to be beaten up, and it's a rigorous schedule. Where's the depth? Where's the depth? And we just clearly don't have it. Like, how many guys can you call on the bench and say, if I don't have this guy can do the job for me? Do you guys have trust in Loftus-Cheek? Do you guys have in Musa for all the good he's done in some performances that he's been featured in late? Do you trust Musa to go and say, hey, I can take Tijani or Fofana out and put a Musa in there and I can expect a good, solid outing? I don't have that. So we're really in a difficult spot with this midfield. And it really, with the decision-making regarding this upcoming transfer window and the future being in doubt for Fonseca, which feels like every week, is that they're out to say, well, we don't know if he's going to be the coach, so we don't want to spend on this guy. Is it going to be another one of those Januaries? I don't know.
I mean, I'll be surprised if they buy anybody in January, seeing the quotes that we've seen come out of the management.
Yeah, when they say Benacer, right? New signing.
Yeah, that's exactly. He's been a new signing for like 3 years straight now, every January. So I don't know about. I actually don't necessarily mind the way that the coach tries to play. I mean, Fonseca's adapting to what he has. He clearly sees Emerson Royal is not doing the job, so he uses Musa in that way. I don't mind it. But yeah, I do understand that we leave ourselves, a quality attacking right winger up there a position that is not being utilized the right way, the most efficient manner. I think the key to this is that it's still clearly a work in progress, and any expectations of trophies is probably not likely.
No,
And
they would have
obviously
to
we're
get
gonna
very lucky in the Super Copa. I think they would
yeah,
need to have like a great 2 games or so. I believe it's because that format's like the semifinal then the final.
even the Super Copa, I'd be surprised.
Oh
I
no, of
think
course. I'm
if
just saying
anything
that's the
more,
best
it's
path.
probably more. You might just expect something from Coppa Italia if things kind of fall your way in the draw
Yeah.
itself.
I
But
think we
yeah,
would have to face Inter maybe for the semifinal, but either
exactly.
way, that's so far away. Um, because I don't want to jump ahead to Fonseca's quotes, but Fonseca's quotes do reflect on like what was happening here with the starting 11. But we'll get into the game first. So put it this way, Kush, this goal was great from Rafa. I don't think we've ever really seen him finish on his weak foot like this. Fofana, again, by the way, I'll have to address a tweet later in the show because Fabio was asking me to. I thought, hey,
Sure.
listen, man, sometimes stuff is just funny, and that's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
But
make that the
anyway,
thumbnail too.
yeah, oh, dude, nah, I'm not gonna go to Grok asking for AI images for that one. But this was a great assist, honestly. He's very surprising with it. I think when Rafa had the goal against Cagliari, I believe he had a left-footed assist through him. I just think he's just been so sensational, and I think he's been sacrificing a lot of what he's good at because he has to play in this defensive midfielder role. Again, great goal by Rafa. This one was largely a snooze fest, right, Kush? Because you were saying the same thing. This was a real rough watch. Then they end up scoring and tying this one up in the 60 something minute, I believe. So Milan got off to a so-so start, but again, when you're up 1-0, you don't want to get too upset. But then naturally Milan do end up conceding and the game was drawn. So kind of walk us through that first half and Rafa's goal, and then Santangelo you pick up after that.
I don't know. I could probably sleepwalk the first half. It was I don't understand what there's really no passion. There's no intensity to these
See,
guys
another
in so
Fonseca
many
thing. So
games,
it's just
right? Sorry,
no, you're good,
that's
but you're
yeah.
right though. It's so recognizable, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't there's supposed to be an intensity to a Champions League game. You're progressing in that particular competition. They have okay, let me just talk about the first half. There was really nothing in it. Not much to discuss. It was just that, lovely pass from Fonseca and Leao finishing after, looking pretty slow throughout the entirety of the first half if I remember my notes right here. Yeah, that was really nothing. I see all minuses for Leao, and then suddenly he, picks it up around the 42nd minute and scores that goal. It was a great goal, lovely control. The way the deft touch to bring that down, and then the strike from that distance with his left. It was a beautiful goal. But then what happened in the second half? Nothing. Again, just they all constantly need some type of a catalyst to wake them up. It's the Real Madrid game, so now we're gonna, perform. It's the derby, so we're gonna now. Oh, the team scored on us. Now we're gonna get up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to go from
Reactionary.
reactionary team. You have to go from minute 0 to 90 with the intensity that you want to pick up the 3 points and score as many goals as possible. They just don't have it, and you can see in the Champions League games too now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's look, a lot of the issues that are festering and lingering around this team under Fonseca, look, maybe in the initial recordings and podcast episodes and way back in the early part of the season, you can kind of like, it's more just like the growing pains and the early angst of like, man, we're not getting results. We're not playing good. Our contemporaries are getting results. What's going on? And I think that Fonseca, if there was ever a honeymoon phase with Fonseca, because I don't think there was, maybe it
I
dates
don't think
back
there
to
was,
that.
man.
Maybe it dates back to the 3 friendlies that we looked very good with all the young players.
That's
That's
exactly
probably the honeymoon phase of Fonseca. We're approaching January. We're approaching the midway point of the Serie A season. We're 7 games into the Champions League, if I'm correct, right? Is it 7, 6?
6, I think.
We've won 4 straight, right? We lost the first 2.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. When like, at what point does it say like at what point do the people say, all right, enough's enough? Like, I've seen enough to the point where this isn't going to change. we've been doing
I
this
think the
coach.
Champions League results have been very fortunate. I
They've
think
been
Club
very, they've been very,
Brugge,
they've been very fortunate. And to
Club
Kush's
Brugge, they
point,
were up the
the
man for how long?
the Real Madrid game, like the Club
Even
Brugge game, like some
Slovan.
of them have we've
Slovan
sprinkled
scored
in
half
some
their goals
quality
again.
performances, but you look at the totality of these performances, the body of work of these players under this coach, and that's where I think again with Fonseca's quotes, which we'll get into, he's even reached a tipping point because he's been pretty reserved and selective where he puts his sort of criticism, and a lot of the criticism for most part of the season was going towards Rafa specifically because he was probably getting pestered with questions on that. But it's interesting that he won't say names here, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But he was so quick to be like, Rafa did this, but Rafa needs to do that. Rafa did this, he needs to do that better. So again, I just think that this performance, the performance even against Atalanta and this victory here, it doesn't I've reached that point where I don't feel anything. Like I'm just creating content.
I
A
agree.
weird feeling. Like there's no to Kush's point, like there's no energy. There's nothing where we can be like, man, that was a gritty, ugly win. But the way we came together in the last 15 minutes, players running down their challenges and busting up play. Like that one clip of I harp back on, I think it was it the Scudetto winning season or was the season after, where Tonali ran like 80 yards across the field to just win the ball back
after his bad touch. Yeah.
There's like nothing of that in this team. Like I don't see anything like that. And this isn't to discredit some of the players because I'm not saying that none of them are trying hard, but like there's not
a cohesive
unit.
Grinta,
there's no this is AC Milan. Like we're going for this game. Energy about this team. There's no edge about this team that excites me and gets me in positions where when the game is in the balance or the game is tight, like yesterday, where I'm like, we got this. We're AC Milan. We're getting this victory. I don't feel with this team. It's just individual moments and individual catalysts. To Kush's point, where it's like nothing. Okay, Rafa goal, you win 1-0 and you win ugly. That's what happens. Or Pulisic gets a great goal and you barely win.
There was this person who told me in regards to making content, they said 80% of your content should be, something you really work on, and 20% should be something that you sort of sleepwalk through. You just get it out there.
Yeah.
You feel like Milan's performances are like 20% of the performances are that energy, and 80% they're just sleepwalking through results.
Yeah, the reverse. Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be that way.
It's reflective for like a lot of things. So like when I think we all agree with that. I think many would agree with like Fonseca's comments. Actually, we'll get to that in a bit. I just want to talk about because we did win the game. So there was some positive with this. Tammy should be starting regardless of Morata's injury. I think Tammy has just proven almost every single time he's featuring now. He's getting goal contributions. He's more conducive to them scoring more goals. And guess what, guys? We talk about it, and I think we've all mentioned it. Milan need to score 2 to 3 goals a game just to feel good about winning or feel comfortable about winning because they can't defend. And it's been constantly embarrassing. I think it's going to continue to be this embarrassing. But again, Tammy scoring the winner here. Chukwueze sends this cross into Camarda. I thought Camarda just even having the ability to get this header off and make it threatening enough that the goalkeeper has to make a save, tip it, hits the crossbar. I had a lot of Red Star fans upset on my TikToks today talking about this game, thinking that they were robbed on this goal for the poach with Tammy. But again, listen, as much as we have disdain towards this style of play, and a lot of us find this unsustainable, a result's a result. And I think, Matt, you tweeted about it. Hey, like at this rate, I'm not expecting good play or fun play to watch. It's just going to have to be a results-based situation. And Milan got the result here. I think I'm most happy literally just that Camarda got the goal contribution for this, which was oddly enough, UEFA's official site, the Champions League site, does credit him with an assist.
So weird.
So I will say that. I don't really know the reasoning behind it. I think someone said like it has to do with like the ball being touched after the deflection off the crossbar. I don't know. I've never seen it before. But again, it's 3 points. Camarda doesn't get a ton of minutes, guys, but it feels like every single time he gets on there, that ability to just get better based off of just getting more comfortability, familiarity with playing as a professional. I think it's slowly starting to pay off. Obviously, he hasn't gotten a ton of minutes outside of the Cagliari match in which he started. So, again, just finding a way, regardless if you're 16, if you're 30, having the ability to pick up the 3 points for Milan here. Good moment for the guys, I guess, despite that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's with Camarda again. We haven't seen an abundance of minutes, and those minutes coming very often from the start. As you mentioned, the Cagliari game was the one individual start, and you saw some things that you liked. Obviously, you saw rawness, and that's expected with a 16-year-old. But even in the was it the Club Brugge game where he came on and he almost scored the header and it was ruled offside?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, correct.
I feel like, again, this is like just very premature with what I'm going to say, but Camarda seems like he's going to be a forward player that just has that propensity to show up in the right spot in the right moment. Similar to what Giroud
genius
did.
strikers do. Yeah.
It's similar to what Giroud did on many occasions for Milan, where you're like, take Giroud off. He's doing nothing. He can't run in behind. Oh, and then all of a sudden it's this cross in, and then he'll do like a back heel acrobatical and he'll win you the game. I think like Camarda is going to have that ability to just have a really good understanding of the space and where he needs to be and how to make an impact because he's a big kid. He has got that striker's instinct. You can see it obviously in his body of work in the youth levels for Italy and Milan. So that's on him. And I think, on the entire, performance in Milan getting a result here.
Yeah.
This was something I was thinking of on my way home to, obviously have this podcast with you guys. And, there have been people who say, well, they win. It doesn't always have to be pretty and this, that. I understand winning ugly is often a quality that every winner, every club that's won something has. Yeah. It's not always going to be glamorous. It's not always going to be a 3-0 thrashing where you're doing Rabanas and Trivella goal. It's not always going to be that way, right? And Milan had many of those victories and performances and, characteristics in their Scudetto winning season, where they had guys where it was like 0-0, and then all of a sudden Tonali toe tapping, lunging beats Lazio. And you're like, okay, Milan aren't winning sexy, but they're winning games. There's an it factor about them. Yeah. And I don't mind winning in the way that we have, but when every performance is like that, that's where it's a problem. So for people to say, okay, yeah, but like not every match has to be this. Okay, not every match is, but basically every match they win is very tight. Even the Bratislava game, you're holding your breath. You're holding your breath, and it was 3-1, and Milan were in the driver's seat. And you're like, they might blow this. They literally might blow this game. And that's where we're at with this Milan team. So again, a victory, we'll take it. It's results based. I can't complain too much when we win matches in the Champions League because frankly, look around at some of the other big giants, guys. Real Madrid haven't looked spectacular. PSG might not even qualify. They're playing poorly. So you take it where you can get. Milan understand, and we understand that this is not just really strictly down to results in the Champions League as being important, but the money that comes along with it. And if Milan can somehow shithouse their way, excuse my language, to going deep into this competition and reaping the benefits revenue-wise of doing that, no problem. Sign me up. I'll take it.
I think that quality that you're talking about that Milan had, with that Tonali goal against Lazio, you see that similar quality with Atalanta this time. Yeah. Even the win that they pulled off against Milan, that Lookman goal, 87th minute, that's kind of what Milan was doing. That's the winning season. So you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I agree with you about, going deep so you can get those finances, but they need to make top 4.
Exactly. How are you going to expect to spend more if you don't make top 4 or vice versa?
We've been making top 4 semifinals. We still don't spend. So.
I don't even want to talk about it. I just have no, it's just stupid. It's just aggravating and it's just beating a dead horse. That's my club. So Fonseca had some comments post match. I will preface by saying a lot about this, and I'll let you guys go in and dissect these quotes on your own. So I think this initially had started with what everybody assumes he's referring to Davide Calabria, very specifically with his attitude when he was subbed off. I didn't see it. I was moving around and doing things at the time, so I didn't get a chance to see Calabria get subbed off, and quite frankly, didn't really care. I was just sick of it. So anyways, these comments by Fonseca, I completely back before I read them here. And I have to say, it is impossible for me to hate on someone who is demanding more greatness out of the team I like, because I think that's what the standard should be. Now, does that mean I think Fonseca has done a good job this year? Absolutely not. And the fact that I have to explain that is just how the internet works, I guess. But he's done a poor job in general. However, one thing I think that he's nailed, and I don't really care if it alienates players in the locker room, because there's certain things that you could kind of side with players alienating themselves from a manager. It's because they might treat them poorly, or they're being ridiculous, or like Marco Giampaolo, for example, asking Lucas Paqueta to be less Brazilian is a terrible message to send publicly. That does not help a player. That ruins his confidence. What Fonseca has done is demanding a higher standard out of his players, I believe. And, we kind of see how certain players respond to that with the penalty situation. And then again, with the Lazio situation as well, with the water break, that was resolved, but it also went back to the Parma game. So we're talking about the second game of the season, right, guys, that these sort of issues appeared. And when Fonseca is coming to say this, and this is an indictment, because if this is about work ethic, I think players are indefensible in this. So he goes on to say, I know that I work every day to do well. I don't know all the players of our team can say the same thing. We had to come here and give it our all to win. I don't know if we did that, Kush. That was something that you were hammering home this entire podcast. Our team is like a roller coaster. Thank you for recognizing that, at least, Paulo. It's like a coin toss waiting to see what's going to happen. The manager saying this, by the way, is a massive indictment, because he's supposed to be the one in control of this stuff, right? Like he controls a lot of this. And again, I will never stop. I have a clear conscience. If this translation is a little off, but if there's some issues and I have to use the Primavera, the Milan Futuro boys, I will do it without any problem. Okay, so a couple things. Why haven't you done it already? This shouldn't have to be an issue. I know Liberali had some injury issues, but the Jimenez stuff is perplexing, right? We hear Zlatan in the preseason press conference, guys saying Jimenez will be part of the first team this year. Have we seen him? No. We've seen more of Davide Bartesaghi than we've seen of Alex Jimenez. And then again, Liberali, someone who's got a lot of minutes in the preseason. I know he picked up an injury, so-and-so, but still hasn't been given an opportunity, despite the fact that Ruben Loftus-Cheek has shown zero qualities to be a number 10, in my opinion. I don't care what he did in the Europa League last year. I think that was completely fugazi about it. And again, with that, it's sort of like, okay, when do you turn to these players? And what players do you think he's actually referring to here? I think the consensus here, guys, is that it was Calabria, specifically for this one, but that is plural. So he's talking about multiple guys here. Is there anyone that kind of like stands out to you guys so far this year that would have this apply to them? And if there's not one player in particular, just is this the kind of sense from the entire group, you think? Kush, go ahead first.
Honestly, I wonder if it's about Davide, the Calabria, because it could be, but he's barely even played. Like, for all the players that you can call out on the team, that's the guy you're going to call out. You know how many performances that are horrible we've seen from other players, some star players, 100%. Inconsistency. If you're gonna if you're gonna punch the weakest guy basically right now, who's out of a contract, is probably not going to be here next year. I don't know if Fonseca is even taking the right path by going after Calabria specifically, because he's played 3 games this season. So I don't know who it was about, but I think the team needs to hear it. Hopefully behind closed doors in the locker room, he's letting exactly the person know that this is for you, because clearly a reaction is needed from this team from everything that we've seen. Now, I did talk about this in my own video too, is, he's either lost all other means of being able to get this team to wake up, and now he's going publicly about it, and he's maybe this will get them a little bit more, maybe their egos will be hurt from this, and now they'll want to work hard. Or, as I said, if he's shifting blame, or it's like, well, you know what, maybe I'm a dead man walking. Maybe I'm not going to get a lot of time here. So let me just, in the last match against Atalanta, we didn't see Fonseca go after the referees this much as he did in the match.
Yeah.
And I actually don't even think that was that bad a thing. I think that CDK goal would have stood for me, it was not that big a foul.
No, not at all. I don't think it was a foul either. I agree with you.
Right. So Fonseca's going after the referee in the last match. In the most recent match, he's now complaining about his own players. I hope it's the first one where he's trying to wake him up, but it could even be the second one where he's just like, okay, you know
Yeah,
what? I
because
don't want.
he's been saying that quite often. I totally understand where you're coming from, Matt. Do you kind of agree with that? I mean, to an extent, I think there's a deflection of blame. He has had some accountability, but again, it's kind of a generalized statement. So like if unless he doesn't unless he addresses the players themselves, right? Maybe he does behind closed doors. We don't know everything. Um, but also if you're against that many players, then how is that gonna work if the locker room is sort of divided at that point? It's just to me, it's more of a PR nightmare because now like
Yeah.
there's a guessing game on like, oh, it's and this is where Body Language FC comes in. It's like, oh, this guy's slouching and he's not playing as much, so Fonseca hates his ass. This guy isn't clearly putting in enough effort. Everyone thinks Teo wants to leave. Just for me, again, Matt, before I let you go here, I don't know if you agree with this, but I've seen a lot of coddling for certain players on social media, guys, about oh Maldini left, so this player is not, he's not in mental peace or at the same. We're talking about effort here, right?
Stop.
We're talking about effort for grown men. The older I get, the more I'm sort of like, what's your excuse, man? I understand if you're upset if Paolo Maldini left, and if it bothered you that much, then you should have just asked to leave. No offense. And this isn't me asking for Teo to leave, but if that's the case, or for any other player, then you could have left. You could have asked a transfer request. But why do you need Paolo Maldini to put in effort? That's the bare minimum any time you put on this shirt, I think. And if you don't have that and you need Maldini to hold your hand, then I don't think you're Milan standard to begin with. And I'm not saying specifically Teo. This is in general. This applies to any player. So Matt, like, is that what I think? For me, I'm more frustrated that these players suck. It's also an effort thing at times, but I think these guys stink more than it is effort. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a bunch of different things here. It's a culmination of issues. I think that obviously, look, very early on in the season for us to have had the struggles we had, and to see certain players have like at least it look like rifts with the coach, just like mere weeks into his tenure, is very concerning. So we don't know how much this
Yeah,
predates. Maybe the players didn't think that he was the right guy for the job anyway, because got to understand this. Pioli was there for 5 years. You're fostering a certain club culture and
yeah,
changing room culture. And for all the flaws that Pioli had as a coach, whether it be, his rotation or tactics or inability to develop certain players and younger players, I felt like generally speaking, he was a very good man manager and the players respected
yeah.
him.
He's pretty good.
I think that he was obviously flawed. And for those people saying, Pioli deserves an apology, or don't you wish you had Pioli? Two wrongs, or whatever the phrase is, two wrongs don't make a right. Like,
Yeah,
you could say that Pioli was not the guy for the job going forward and needed to be replaced. And also say that the guy that replaced him is also not good enough for the job. And they
doesn't it
picked the
remind you of
wrong
a
guy.
specific position?
Right. Like that's the way I look at it, but it's hard to put it down to this team, right? Because I think that
Yeah,
Milan, look, let's start off with a lot of the concerns that Milan had in previous years and why they fell short of objectives, right? Was it maybe down to quality? Okay. Would you argue that this is probably top to bottom one of the better teams that Milan have had? It's definitely better than, in my opinion, the post Scudetto year where we didn't really do anything on the market. We had very underperforming players, and yet we still got top four. But you look at the attack, you look at the midfield quality that we have, albeit there's only two guys that stand above everybody else. And you're like, okay, we're not saying this team should be a world beater, but they shouldn't be limping and struggling as much as they are. You look at the fact that, okay, all the injuries, that's why Pioli underperformed. We really aren't banged up here and there, but players are more or less healthy. And now you have an issue where the coach is in position where he's choosing players for certain roles that really just don't fit. And
yeah.
then also on top of that, you have players that don't seem motivated, don't seem to be galvanized behind the coach and the common cause. So it's just a comedy of errors. But I think, again, a lot of these things that we're seeing, guys, and you guys can agree, disagree, and maybe speak more on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important that it's not just down to the coach and the players. It's down to the club ethos, the culture that you created, and the people involved, top to bottom. There was something to be said about having a guy like Paolo Maldini when the going got tough and results were difficult. Paolo Maldini having that presence at Milanello. There was something to be said about Paolo Maldini having to take the brunt and Mazzara having to take the brunt of the criticism when it came to the market. Why aren't we spending? And he would bluntly say, we got to get Champions League more than 1 year in a row. We can't just go and spend 100 million. I look at, again, the presence of Ibrahimovic. I look at our directors. Otavio?
He's gone.
You don't even he's an urban legend, urban myth, as far as I haven't heard anything
about him.
Right?
It's like Yang Hong Lee.
Yeah, it's like you're like, I think
maybe he knew how to iron his
follows
shirt.
me on Twitter, which is funny. It's just a funny thing, right?
I forgot.
But you look at everything top to bottom, and there's so much dysfunction. And the more you see that, and the more you come to that realization, the more you say to yourself, "Oh yeah, it makes sense why they're struggling." Because in those years where they weren't spending, they were getting certain players. Man, I felt more energy and more passionate about it.
It felt like a plan, and
I do now when they spent more and off the back of Scudetto. And I think, in a way, the shortcomings, the suffering as a fan base, and the amount of times that this team fell short in the ramp up to getting top four, getting back into the Champions League, and winning a trophy, it almost feels like there's a little bit of like a complacent that. In that moment, in that ramp up, they had so much to go for and so much to be passionate and inspired and motivated by. But now it's like every time you hear Scaroni and you hear these guys, we're just trying to get top four. We're just trying to get our revenues good. And it's like the players feed off that. The fan base feeds off that.
Well, at least then be in top four.
Well, here's the thing. And I was actually talking about this with Ali Fisher today, and why it's so infuriating on how they ran as a club. And I was thinking back to like when the Galliani Berlusconi era, even towards the end. How many guys, right? Because you cover a litany of things and talk about like all these like interviews and quotes. How many directors or executives do we have that are giving interviews at separate times talking about separate things? There's an Ibrahimovic interview. There's a Scaroni interview. There's Ferlani giving an interview with The Athletic. There's Jerry going into conferences for Bloomberg and business conferences only. He's never facing the music as an owner itself and addressing the team. And I'll get into that because there's a whole rant.
Very rarely does Jerry face Italian media too.
Well, that was going to be my point. I'll get to that really quickly too. But then again, we have like Scaroni, like anytime he opens his mouth, like I lose my mind with what he says. I think he's just like literally just snatch the microphone away from him. Do not let him talk anymore in public because he makes no, seriously. He is a bigger embarrassment each time he opens his mouth. And it's a problem for the club because that creates more PR negativity and more pressure on the club and the team. And that's a negative. If you want to talk about what you know about the stadium progressing, fine. But other than that, please shut up. So with that, the Jerry stuff and addressing the media is very funny to me, and it's a great point, and it's something that I wanted to make. And Kush, I'll let you go. It's just been it infuriates me. So when, and I'm sure you guys have seen these interviews, and Kush, when Jerry sits down and he's talking to these guys, he's talking about George Steinbrenner and sort of how like Silvio Berlusconi used to own the club and how he would go about things. He would like his presence in the locker room, the dressing room, and being a part of the club, like he's there. It feels like this. We only hear him and see him when he's on these business conferences talking about how he owns AC Milan. And there's these stupid quotes that are just, I'd rather you say nothing than admit to saying that you didn't know how successful Milan was in the past after the fact that you bought the team. It's, to me, it's sort of like you actually don't know what you have, and your actions are reflecting that. And I think he uses Ibrahimovic, and I think a lot of the fans who were right about this, as his puppet almost. Like, hey, you go out there, you take the brunt of this work because you have a good rapport and relationship with the fans, because in a way you're a very unique legend of the club. And that way, a lot of people don't have disdain towards you because of what you've done, especially very recently. It's getting sour very quickly with Zlatan. It really is. And I think something that I had mentioned as well was it was okay when Zlatan was able to back up his stupid third person talking by scoring goals because he had the ability to control the results at that time as a player. Now, as whatever the hell his job title is, he can't go on the field to back that up. Okay? So when we see these results drop and they're poor, and we see their other managerial hiring option that they didn't end up going with because there was a petition struggle in the Premier League, it also like kind of gives you, hey, even if we sell some players that we need to get rid of, can you trust us for replacements? There's just the fish rots from the head down. And that's exactly what this is. And a lot of the people who are presumptuous about Jerry as an owner, they're looking right now. And I think Jerry has a lot less time with what he thinks he does in terms of good faith from the fan base. Because right now, I don't see how they're going to continue to support him. Kush, like, I know you've done a lot of this stuff, and it's kind of hard to summarize in a couple minutes here. But what's your measurement on this? Like, you don't even like, so say like, okay, Fonseca needs to get sacked. Are you even like feeling remotely positive about who they would even try as a replacement or try to get in as a replacement?
Yeah, that's exactly what I tweeted out, or I think it was in the comment section. I was talking to someone that, okay, you want Fonseca out,
Yeah.
but you do realize who's going to make the next pick. It's the same people that you also don't like. So literally, your only solution is a sale of the club, which we don't even know when that's going to happen. And
Yeah.
going back to your earlier point about Galliani days and how directors didn't used to speak as much back then, and now all these guys are talking. Results fixes everything. Right.
Yeah.
So back then, Milan used to get results. So you don't really need Galliani or anybody talking too much.
I was actually referring to like 2013, even. Like,
but that was going to be my point.
okay.
Is that during that time, you didn't really see them talking. But I feel like when the results started to sour, we also saw, more involvement from Berlusconi. Why aren't we playing the 4-4-2? Why aren't we playing these formations he used to get into? That's why he was bringing Brocchi in and Inzaghi in, because he wanted them to play his.
Seedorf, yeah, all that.
Exactly.
Kind of
right. So I think when results start to sour, the executives also start speaking more and trying to defend themselves, because clearly their actions are not defending themselves because you're not getting the results.
They're not all on the same page, right?
Yeah.
So the D'Ottavio stuff, if you like, so there was disagreements about the Futuro and the way about the Primavera. We had heard some rumblings, right, that they not hated, but there was a strong dislike of how they managed Abate. Like, Abate didn't get that Milan Futuro job, where he ends up managing in the same league and beating you. So we don't know what kind of manager he would be, but like, that's the disconnect right there. And if one of the guys that you hire to go into a position in D'Ottavio, and again, Fabio and Gio had a very clip about D'Ottavio because they didn't even know his name, which is like, I totally understand where they're coming from, because we knew he had gotten promoted and he had very rare experience prior to that. He's on the outs because we found out that he was beefing with Zlatan and he hates the way that they've approached all these things. So it's sort of like they're not even on the same page internally. So how does that happen? Who's to blame?
Everybody?
Yeah.
You really have to blame everybody.
That,
and if the leadership is like that, obviously, as you said, it's going to translate on the field too. It's just, it's a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
But that is what it is. It's, you have an inexperienced owner who didn't really know much about football. Well, maybe he did, but definitely not much about the team.
This stature. It's a big, it's a big difference.
Right.
Totally.
And he didn't know enough about the team. And then he's made certain hirings that, it's been hit and miss. They've made some good signings and some signings not so much. Now, if you can get that stadium built, even the stadium is now starting to drag on and on and on. Initially, it was like, oh, Cardinale is going to get it done. And now it's the same story we've seen for so many years.
Very Pelota coded. And how like everything was hinging on the stadium because the sporting results were not there. I think they're not there either. And just like, again, it's a PR stuff. I always bring up this stupid quote that he had. And he's talking about why Zlatan was such a great hire. Who better to represent AC Milan as the face of the club than Zlatan himself and know the club inside out as the man who sacked Paolo Maldini is mind-boggling.
Now, now Boban is not invited for the 125th.
Yeah, okay, so you know about this then, because I saw our good friends at Milan Club New York City. So what do you know about this? What's going on with this?
I mean, all I heard was that he wasn't invited, and I think he even came out in public and talked about it.
Yeah, I think so.
And then you think about it, you're like, this is a guy who won the Champions League, the Serie A title. I think he won in both in the same year. He was a recent executive with the club.
94, I believe he was on the team. Yeah.
So how are you not gonna?
I mean, he was openly. I don't. So we know Boban is a very critical person. That's why it was exciting to get him in initially, because you're like, he has Milan's best interest. That interview with Zlatan earlier in the year, guys. I don't know if you remember it, but he was kind of making fun of what Zlatan's role was because he didn't know what Zlatan's role was. So when you kind of get to that point of it, you're sort of actually like, Boban does have a point. And Zlatan being very vague and, you know, all the other crap that we were just kind of poo-pooing on him for, that's another big farce because that's just another PR mess. And again, it signifies he doesn't know what he's doing. And I made this point to Ali as well, because I think I also tweeted it out on that Milan podcast, was Gordon Singer. When Gordon Singer came in and he had a role within the club, he invested in the money. He knew a good amount about Milan because he was smart enough to hire someone like Gazidis, who would be a great CEO for the club, and bring back Paolo Maldini and assure him that this project had the club's best interest in mind, fiscally, sporting wise, and across the board. It's fairly obvious why Maldini left and did not end up staying, because he did not align with how Jerry viewed the club and how he wanted to run the club. And lo and behold, the people who back Paolo Maldini are still looking right in this situation. And again, that's not to say he was a great director or a flawless director. He had his flaws. We get that. But things were a lot better underneath him than they are now. And I think personally, guys, I still think it's going to get worse at this point before it gets better.
I'm gonna read a quote real quick too.
Yeah,
This
go
was,
for it. Go for everything. Yeah.
Emiliano Viviano just kind of speaking on. I think Gianni Rivera wasn't invited either, which again,
I'm gonna curse because of my podcast, but that's a fucking embarrassment.
So this is the quote again, the Google translation straight off Twitter. And quote, why didn't they invite Boban to the 125th anniversary? Because they don't understand a thing about the history of Milan. You may not like him, but you have to invite him to an event about the history of Milan. Boban made history before these guys knew what Milan was. So Milan are in a very difficult spot, right? Because Kush, as you just mentioned, you know, the cries for new ownership and all these sorts of things, right? And then I've seen many Serie A clubs get taken over by Americans. And I've seen people, I think Verona is the most recent one, right? Not including Drake with the whole it's different bankrupt, right?
I think there's a
people were saying, I think it's like another American owner that could be coming into Serie A, and people are arguing and complaining, saying, "Oh, well, they're ruining the sport or they're ruining the league or whatever." My argument is this: okay, so in recent years, a lot of these Italian owners and clubs are not being run the way they should be. They're not getting with the times. They're not making the revenues. They're just happy to be there. They're not ambitious. The infrastructure with the stadiums is not there. And people will complain, why don't they spend money? These guys need to go. But then you get an ownership that comes in here that might want to spend a little bit, like Parma, who are trying to get the team back to where they are. Fiorentina, who have like a good Italian-American presence, right? And now you get Milan get their wish, right? Because they didn't want Elliott. Elliott don't spend. Okay, now you're getting a man, the ownership that potentially will spend. Now you don't like him, but you don't want to bring in an owner from a different country or whatever, because you don't want to lose the fabric of Italian football, right? You don't want to bring in someone that's an outsider that doesn't know, like Jerry, how historic and prestigious this Milan team is. So it's like Milan are caught between a rock and a hard place, at least the fan base are, because they want a new owner that will spend. They want to maintain that Italian identity and DNA, but then they also want to get an ownership that will not see the club as strictly just an asset that they can flip in a money-making machine. So it's like, that's where Milan are at a very challenging spot as a club, because to Kush's point, like, okay, people are losing trust in this regime. Yeah. And you want the coach gone, fine. But the first coach that reportedly was the target, Lopetegui, everyone was saying absolutely the hell not. Okay, he's at West Ham. I think he got fired, and if he hasn't gotten fired yet, it's happening very soon. They get Fonseca in. They don't want Fonseca, but then all the guys they're linked with, I don't want Allegri. He doesn't play great football. Okay, well, what do you want? It sounds like you want Pep Guardiola. That's the only guy you guys want. Like, I just think it's fan expectation. But again, to Kush's point, and this is my final thing here, is unlike in previous years when you had Galliani and Berlusconi, when you're winning, no one says anything, right? It's like at work, right? If everything's going well, no one's going to say anything. And then production slips, results slip. Hey, what's going on with this? Like, we need to do this. Like, we need to do that. That's where Berlusconi came in at the banter era. Why aren't we playing the 4-2-3-1? You're like, he didn't have to do any of that. So now it's Milan are in that position with this club, and their bar is so low. It's top 4, good revenue, stadium. That's Jerry's standard right now.
And that's what's also more insulting to Milan fans, I think, guys, is that when so say you did like a blind like view of, or if you were told in the past, right, like 5 years ago, you're like, Milan will have their highest revenues since the mid 2000s when they were the best team in the world. And you'd be like, oh, wow, that must mean Milan are spending money and doing great to be ambitious and move forward, right? Wrong. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. It's like pulling at teeth to get them to pony up for one player. You're telling us you're willing to have a release clause for Joshua Zirkzee for 40 million, right? And then Buongiorno's right there for a similar price, and then you're not willing to meet that price. And it's sort of like, okay, then what are we doing here? Why are we going back to cutting corners? Eventually, you're going to have to buy a proven commodity. And the fact that they're choosing not to, and they keep going down this path that they don't necessarily have to, means to me that it's a bad thing in the long run. And I think a good amount of people agree with that. And that's really where we're at.
I mean,
that.
I guess in that sense, you have to give Fonseca some credit, I guess, because at least he's criticizing the team when they pick out the 3 points. There's so many bad performances we saw from Milan that, Pioli would just say, oh, we played well for 60 minutes. Right, but at least here we pick up 3 points, we win the game, and Fonseca's like, I don't like this. I don't like the way that they're playing. Yeah. I still think Fonseca it's not too early to judge. You can obviously judge what has happened till now, which is not good in a lot of ways. But everybody seems to be saying, a lot of people that have worked with him or around him, that his systems take time. And if his systems are developing right now, and they are looking more like the team that he wants them to be, and now he just wants the mentality to be improved, I don't know. I'm just...
just use the youngsters anyways. You don't need guys with a lack of effort. Ruben Loftus-Cheek's been terrible. Just try it. Just try Liberali. Do we think we maybe see that this weekend?
This Loftus-Cheek thing is weird, man. Even Pioli loved him, although he was playing better last season.
I don't know. I really don't want to insult the player or like keep going at him, but it's just, it sticks out like a sore thumb, like Emerson Royale does. So it's difficult. Well, anyways, any final thoughts on these comments, stuff regarding Milan before we let you discuss everything that has happened?
I'm good.
No,
yeah, I know. I'm sick of the shit too. We're all content creators talking about the same thing. Okay, so Kush,
you got old
something that has happened with your YouTube, and we're always here and big supporters of you and everything that you do because you're a great guy and you run a phenomenal YouTube channel that it's been great to watch grow, but there's some nonsense going on.
Thanks. I mean, long story short, I almost lost the channel recently. It's still here. That's the good news. But I'll probably make a standalone video on my channel about this, the whole experience as to what happened. If people go watch, go to the channel right now, they'll see all my match reviews from like years are all gone. I made a conscious effort to do that because of what was happening. It was basically, not to get into too much about it, but it was around some copyright stuff that was being passed for so long, for multiple years at this point in time, that suddenly the whole thing came about, like, hey, what is this? And I had a video that was taken down, and then I was chatting with people from YouTube on the back end, and everyone was very helpful. I hear a lot of negative things about YouTube staff, and back end can be difficult, but for me it was great. They were very helpful. But yeah, I had to make some pretty drastic steps of deleting every video is gone. I'll probably go into it, as I said, more detail in the standalone video itself, but the channel's still here. I'm still here. So we'll keep creating, but a few people have been asking me in the comment section on the channel, and people have been messaging me on Twitter and DMs that, hey, what happened? Where's your stuff? And I just thought, since we'd already scheduled this yesterday, I thought, if I'm already here, I can capture a different audience and let them know that, hey, just go check out the channel. Obviously, like and subscribe, watch the videos. But I'm going to take a different angle to it moving forward.
Okay.
But yeah, almost lost it. So just be careful with what you're doing on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah, that's unfortunately why I don't even like use anything anymore. It's just these graphics that we have in StreamYard, and then I'll grab like pictures from Milan's site that they allow you to like download and use. That's about it. So what should people come to expect as far as the future goes? Just look out for that video where you're addressing everything, or should people expect something after the Genoa match? Or
I would say I'll probably dive into it deeper because people get a little bit curious. I'll tell so many things about the game and all this, and then
Yeah.
when something happens to the channel, I think it's people are like, "Hey, why aren't you telling us more about this?" So it's more just about going into the spicier details about what happened, how I got these messages, who I was talking to from YouTube, or from Google at least. So I'll break that down in there. But from the channel, you can just expect the same things. I'm gonna make a few tweaks and you'll see, sorry, from the match reviews, you can probably expect the same things, but some tweaks will have to be made to protect the channel for the future. But I'll also probably become a little bit more platform independent. I'm gonna start putting more content on other areas as well to grow multiple spaces. So keep an eye out for that too. Football Kush everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you go.
everything is in the bio, yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to chat about it here a little bit. At least give a trailer to the upcoming video.
Yeah, no, of course. There you go. You need the
At least
file.
it'll definitely be educational. I mean, if not, it's going to be a video that will apply to any content creator, not just in the football space, but
happens to our good
anybody
friend
that
Sharma.
deals with baseball, other sports, other music that are trying to get in here. So it's I mean, you're when it comes to this stuff, Kush, you're very polished. The stuff you put out there is very professional. You're not going there deliberately trying to take anybody's
Kush is
photos,
killing
video.
football.
So like when you put this out, it's going to be something that I think is very beneficial for other creators who maybe draw inspiration from your videos and say, hey, I want to create on Milan, or I want to create on this club. And
Yeah,
you'll give them that kind of that guide as to like, okay, like here's the do's and don'ts. Here's how you're going to, make sure that you're not in this position. So
exactly.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll definitely share it for you.
Yeah, that's the intention, is to let everybody know what to watch out for, what happened here, how it all almost disappeared like that in a 24-hour
It
period.
happened to our good friend Sharma once. I think Sharma had to delete his initial YouTube channel that he had years ago.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
didn't
wow.
start. So it's, again, I used to obviously do a lot more social media management
Hey,
stuff. And this is just
it could have been even worse.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It could have been where the channel gets taken down and I can never make another channel again.
never make another
But
channel.
it also
it can
pays to
get
be nice and
it
polite.
can get to that place. It didn't in my case.
Yeah.
But if the dominoes kept falling before I stopped it,
Yeah.
it could potentially go to that place for any creator out there where you're just completely banned off of YouTube. So in my case, it was a little bit different. I think it can be more in harassment cases too. And this was none of that, cyberbullying and all that. So that can happen. But even in this case, they can sometimes just delete you and be like, hey, goodbye. You can go on other channels. You're not making any YouTube channels anymore. So good news is I'm still here and I'll be making videos about a bunch of stuff. The 125th anniversary jersey is there. I got a video coming up about that. And obviously Milan Genoa, the usual business.
Perfect. Yeah, we didn't get a chance to preview Milan Genoa. I just totally in the back of my mind.
We're gonna be saying the same stuff. It's gonna be a narrow victory.
It's gonna be the same thing. Yeah. Listen, it's crazy. But you know what? Kush, you do great work. Happy to have you back on the channel for the
Thank you guys.
It's a great episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, Kush mentioned everywhere that you can follow him at Football Kush. Again, the link to his YouTube channel is also going to be in the description. And as for us, we're at That Milan Podcast, or That Milan Pod. We had a huge year of growth. We tweeted out all the statistics and support. We're a top video podcast on Spotify, but I don't think there's too many of them. But either way, we look good coming out that way. And again, Matt, you can follow him over here at these tags with his brother running AC Milan Bros, and just all the other content that you come out with over there. Anything coming to fruition from now, right? Not much.
Same old, some Serie A fantasy content for this upcoming round will get posted sometime tomorrow. So make sure you guys go check out my feed for that. And as I always mention, we thank the community who has helped make that success very possible. To Kush's point, we have really great communities on here, and despite the results, up, down, left, right, any type of way that the results go, you guys are always there in the comments, supporting and liking, subscribing, and all that stuff. So we truly appreciate it. And again, having these discussions with Kush and many of you is what makes this so special. So thanks.
Yeah, let me say it in closing that when I was actually stressed out that it's all going to be gone, the one thing that I actually thought of, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just galvanize the troops. I'll get Martino, I'll get Matt, I'll get
Galvanize your
everybody to.
base.
So it actually it
Easy,
feels
yeah.
better to know that there are people around you that can actually help you out when something like that happens.
Of course,
So I appreciate it.
Of course,
Sure.
anytime. And again, that goes for anyone, and also other great YouTube channels and people. Old Hard Rossonero, good friend of ours, Sempre Milan podcast, as always. The link to the Fonseca article and his comments is going to be in the description of the video. Serie A, sit down. It's great. Milan Weekly podcast, Stevie P, hilarious. Just great guys as always. Fabio and Gio on Milan Coast to Coast. Fabio, like that is, I think, pound for pound, the funniest Milan podcast that I think you could watch. So if you like to get a bunch of laughs, I think Fabio and Gio are absolutely your guys. There was a late night hang. Great people. Oh shit, that's right. Before we head out here real quick, I have to address something because Fabio asked.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Where is it? Okay. So Fabio wanted me to address this. This was after Fofana's assist. And quite frankly, it just means what it means, man. It's great balls. That's it.
It's fair. That's nice.
And that answers your question, Sant'Angelo, as well. Because it was also Fabio's.
That fact that you replied with the 2 question marks was like a, what do you mean? What do you mean by this?
Max Lombardia. What formation or system has Moncada recruited for, in your opinion, and are we playing it? I don't think he's recruited for anything at all, Max, to be honest with you. I think he's just getting players. I think he was always good at identifying players, and this was something, and I know we just wrapped up the podcast, but I totally forgot the questions. But the point was, I think that we do a job of, where Moncada, is good at finding talent. But when Maldini was the one and Masada were the ones to piece together the team, it's a completely different job. Moncada was always a scout. So I think he's just picking names and not really like doing a great job of team building, and that's sort of the disconnect. And this will be a quick one for you guys. So just answer it real quick. Where do you think Milan end up placing in Serie A? Kush, go first. It's the end of the year. Where will Milan place?
4th or 5th.
Okay. You have us making a small.
Hopefully we have both Champions League spots for Serie A.
Yes. Sant'Angelo, what do you think?
4th or 5th. I mean, right now I'm leaning towards 5th because I think the league is shown to be deeper this year. You have like Fiorentina, Lazio, who many didn't expect to kind of come out and have the start to the seasons that they had. And then you have your usual suspects. Napoli look good. Juventus, despite all their issues and injuries, they're unbeatable, right? And Atalanta look like title contenders. So Milan have a lot of competition for top 4, top 5. But I still think 4 to 5 is kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. 6th. Interested. I think Inter, Atalanta, Napoli, Juve alone 4th. And then I think the gap where it's not that Fiorentina or Lazio are that much better than us. I think the gap that they've had in Milan's inability to be consistent.
They're winning games.
I think their style of play is sustainable. I think Palladino's a very good manager. And then, Lazio, they don't have too many competitions to worry about. I don't know. I think with Milan, it's just they're going to have an incredibly hot streak. So if Fonseca's teams wake up in the middle of the season, we better see it. Otherwise,
we're probably going to need to see more of Fofana's balls to be able to get more goals, and then we'll be fine.
It was good, Kush. How's it going?
Good shot.
And we'll end it like that. Thank you so much, Kush. Sant'Angelo, everyone else.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Oh, that's funny as fuck.